Today I'm going to answer the question of what this has to do with your health. Hi, I'm Dr. Christensen. Welcome to my office. Today I'm going to discuss something a little bit different and unusual. Today we're going to talk about fixing wax, and I'm going to describe to you how to make it and what I use it for. Earlier this year, I wanted to make a mallet. The way that I made this mallet is by cutting down a small oak tree that needed to be removed, and I had a log, and I decided I wanted to make a mallet based on some of the survival skills videos that we watch once in a while. And so this was a green piece of wood, and we cut it. We scored the edge here. We cut away everything, and as it began to dry, when I was finished, it began to crack, and which is what green wood does. And so I looked online and I found something called fixing wax, and the idea is I pressed the wax into the cracks and sealed the cracks with that, which caused the water to evaporate or release from the wood more slowly, and the crack problem was resolved. As I began studying this fixing wax, mostly from Dave Canterbury's site, if you're familiar with him, I found that it truly is useful for a lot of different things. Not only sealing up wood, but putting it on my knife blades so that they don't rust, and just a number of different things. And we've tweaked this a little bit to our own liking by adding some essential oils. And by doing that, the wax can be used for purposes such as this, but it also says, you could waterproof your boots and canvas, you can seal the leather or dried wood, you can put it on your lips for chapsticks. And one of the things that I found that really excited me about it is putting it on a wound. And so if I cut myself, which I tend to do once in a while, I put the fixing wax on the cut. It seals it. The essential oils helps the healing process, and I found this to be very, very useful, just to have in my pack or available to use for whatever purposes. And so today I'm going to go over how I make this fixing wax. The main ingredient is beeswax, and so what I use is just the yellow beeswax. You can buy it in a chunk. You can buy it in just about any different form that you want, but I like the little pellets. I get this from a company called Bulk Apothecary, if you're interested, and their prices are good, and their quality is generally really good. The ratio of what I make is 1 cup of beeswax, and this is beeswax before it's melted. And typically what I use, I have a dedicated cast iron pot that I use. Just before we started shooting this video, I tested it out on this induction hot plate, and it doesn't work. And so whereas my stainless steel one does work. So normally I would be using this on my stove. We use a gas stove, and that's my preference over electric. But today I'm going to make it in the stainless steel pot. And so I have a whole cup of beeswax here, and to that I'm going to add a half a cup of coconut oil. The coconut oil, there's lots of different types that you can use. We of course like the organic, the best quality that we can get, and so a half a cup of coconut oil. Do your measurements need to be exact? Absolutely not. This just gives it a nice workable consistency. And as many of you know, coconut oil is naturally fungal resistant and bacteria and viruses. I mean, it's a very healing oil. To my beeswax, I'm going to add the the coconut oil. So if we're dealing in parts, you would do 2 parts beeswax, 1 part coconut oil. Is beeswax edible? Can you eat beeswax? Can you put it in your mouth? And the answer is absolutely. And so, one of the things in my herbal making that surprises people sometimes is I'll taste the ointments, and everything in it should be safe, should be edible. We don't use herbs that are addictive, that are poison or toxic or habit forming. And so that's what we use. And then the final ingredient is some essential oil. And you could use a lot of different essential oils. I like using those that have the outdoorsy smells. So in this one we have spruce, we have fir, we have tansy, we have rosewood, a variety of different things. There's also frankincense. And so this is an oil we put together. I call it True Valor. It's loosely based on I think one of Young Living's oils that they use. I'm going to use approximately a fourth of a teaspoon, and so you could measure it as I'm doing here, or you can just drop it right in, and that's going to be about 10 to 12 drops. Next, we're going to melt everything together, and so again, I've got just this induction stovetop thing here, and it melts pretty quickly. And so you can see that in there, and it's already starting to melt. These induction tabletop stoves work really, really fast. The point with this is we want it to just barely melt. We don't need to, heat it to a certain temperature. We're just looking to melt everything so that the ingredients are thoroughly mixed. And once that occurs, it'll be ready to package up. And you can smell the spruce and the fir, which is really nice. Other oils that you could add, you could use tea tree, which is a very healing oil. Tea tree, the botanical name is Melaleuca, if you're familiar with the company Melaleuca. Another oil that is good is lavender. And lavender, helps with burns and cuts and wounds and all of that. Some people like the flavor of lavender, in ice cream or whatever. I don't. My wife does. And so you see here, we're just about melted. I'm going to turn the heat off, and it'll continue to melt the rest of the way. And we're just about there. One of the tips or secrets that I use in making our ointments is, how do you tell when you've added enough beeswax to the ointment to thicken it? And one secret or tip, and I can just show you right here, is you take a couple drips, and you see how that dries real quickly. And I just scrape that off, and this is much thicker than a regular ointment would be. And so, which again, if I'm gonna put it on my hand, you can see where I've had a little cut there, and I'm just gonna rub that in, wipe that on, and I add a layer of protection to it, and it tends to stop the exposure to the air and helps things heal up, and so it's kind of nice. And so we're all the way melted now, and what I use is just these little Altoid tins, and we're all familiar with these. One of my scouts' grandmothers goes through like one of these every week, and so he brings them to us, and we use these for lots of different different purposes, from making a little survival kit to a first aid kit to all kinds of different uses, and it's real nice. One of the things I like to do when I'm doing this is I use some parchment paper just to give a little bit of a seal in here, so that the beeswax or the fixing wax isn't going to be all over the can, although it doesn't really matter. And then it's just a matter of pouring or scooping. I'm going to melt the rest of this coconut oil here. Coconut oil melts at 76 degrees. I'm sure you were wondering about that. And so I just fill that up, and then I'm just going to let it cool. And once it cools, it's going to solidify. It'll end up looking like that. Usually when I'm going to use some of it, I just use the back of my nail. I'll scrape some off and use that for whatever purpose, whether it's, making something waterproof or putting it on my lips or on a cut or a wound or something like that. We like to label things, so I've made a label here for fixin' wax, and that's about it. Easy to do. You've got ingredients that are very easy to find, and perhaps like me, you'll find that this really is kind of a useful thing to have around. If you like our videos, share them with a friend, subscribe if you'd like, and we'll talk to you next time.